I'm Chris, and this is my 17th time watching Star Trek, the original series.
And I'm Derek, and this is my first time watching Star Trek, the original series.
And we're watching the whole thing on Netflix, just talking about it as we do it. You ready?
Yes, I am.
3, 2, 1, engage. So, Dagger of the Mind.
Yeah, this is an interesting episode. I definitely had this. I was interested when they started talking about. I mean, right here you see a big penal colony.
I like how the word doctor's taped on.
And I wonder.
He just got his degree on the way over. Like, those canisters better be labeled doctor when they beam down.
I wonder if this is like a level of foreshadowing when you don't see Scotty at the helm of this.
It's a level of they saved $600.78. Sorry, $678. That's literally what happened.
Yeah, I like that. I don't know what Captain Kirk does. Does he just kind of walk around just aimlessly? And he's like, "Oh, what's wrong? And jobs?"
There's a webcomic called Earthworld where a human is transported into a turn-based strategy game, and in order to give his leadership bonus, he has to travel around parts of the city that he's leading. So literally, he's just earning his leadership bonus.
What I like about this, like the man controlling the teleporter, he tries to do it, but before he's informed about the security problem, he just moves those little knobs up and down with more force.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like definitely need a little bit more training in this machine ensign or whatever that. I don't know what rank he is, but I'm going with ensign.
Yeah, maybe he's an ensign or a lieutenant. He's got the one braid. I'm not sure on how the braids work, but I think they're roughly analogous to Navy stripes. So
I like this. I like this just now where he says you need to familiarize yourself with penal colony procedures. He says immediately. Well, he says, I think you can unload this. Shipment first. And I was like, is that wordplay? Just give me some wordplay, Kirk. Look at you.
Man.
This is very interesting because I didn't know where to go with this. Usually, when you think escaped prisoner, you think of kind of more of a young, menacing-looking dude. And this is just kind of he seems like an old spy, very Sean Connery from The Rock type of situation.
Huh, interesting. Did not see that. So they replaced the wall that we're looking through right now, the fourth wall in this scene, with an engineering, karate chops, with an engineering wall, just so this guy would have something to do. Like, that wall's never there in other episodes.
No. What I find is interesting is that karate chop, everyone seems to do it precisely the same way. I don't know who's teaching this karate class. It's a very one-dimensional karate class.
It's the 60s, man. That's one of the things you take in acting classes in the 60s. You got to be able to do the karate chop.
I don't know. Did Bond ever do the karate chop?
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah, Bond did the karate chop. Even before he was trained as a ninja in No, it wasn't that one. I feel awful not knowing exactly which one he did. There was a movie where Bond took the 2-week ninja course, and then he stormed a volcano.
Richard, we watched this movie. I can't remember. I mean, Richard could rather the off top of mind, but I do remember that movie because I watched it with him. Is it just me, or is it the opening scene? What we're listening to now sounds reminiscent of The Love Boat.
I've never seen The Love Boat. I've seen a lot of Star Trek Love Boat parodies, but never seen.
It seems so kind of upbeat and romantic for a for this type of sci-fi exploratory show.
So you're saying Star Trek isn't upbeat or romantic?
Well, I mean, I guess there's obviously there's romance between him, the ship, and Spock. I mean, we're not going to see Janice Rand anymore, so that's more's a pity.
Yeah. She, yeah.
What I was interested by is, so the Enterprise seems to make a lot of these, hey, we're going to go on a supply mission, and I was kind of thinking, if they didn't want to do the supply missions, they could just have transporter room relays, like basically just create like a beacon in space, That's the transport room, and its only job is to take whatever it gets and send it to somewhere else. So you beam light basically from one command center, and you can, in theory, keep any level, amount of buildings supplied.
Yeah, no, that's actually pretty reasonable. I never thought about that before. I never even heard anyone think about that before, but yeah, that makes sense.
But I mean, obviously, the dramatic reason for them to just be in these wacky situations is necessity. Get some FaceTime with Spock.
Yeah, hey Spock. See, and what makes me curious is that actually I'm very happy about this scene because you finally know they each have their own ear thing, and they're not sharing a gross ear thing. You're like, thank God there are two props.
No karate chop. That's sad.
Early 40s. What is up with the future, man? I mean, no offense to this guy, but that gray hair, I would at least say 50s, right?
Yeah, I would. When I see that level of gray hair, I'm thinking 50s, somewhere in the 50s, mid 50s, even. This is just interesting. This is a very CSI type of a lot of movement going on, updates and all this sort of stuff down the situation.
Yeah, it's a lot more scientific basis for what's happening here than on CSI, but yeah. Later seasons. It's
just, they're so jumpy. He walks in like, oh, dear God, just the security man. Like, yeah, he's following protocol, Captain.
Yeah.
You familiarize yourself with security procedures, apparently. Chill out.
Everybody's on edge. It's a tense situation. I think that's one of the problems of the show is that you're on the bridge. I think they've done entire bottle episodes on the bridge. But you're just sitting there talking with each other. So there needs to be some way to inject a connection with the world outside.
Yeah. I think this is interesting, this dialogue between him and McCoy as far as motion goes.
I went to all that trouble for the guards. Like, bam, karate chop. Fuck. This guy would be amazing in Hotline Miami.
Yeah, he just straight up is just so fast that no one can register that they should be shooting you with his phaser.
Yeah.
My favorite part about this bridge scene, too, is he points it at Kirk. Kirk starts to move, and for a brief moment, the helmsman is between Kirk and the guy. I'm like, Kirk, just stay there. This guy just like, what? He obviously wasn't smart enough to just run out of the way. Yeah. This guy has a lot of weird line deliveries. Like, the way it just is odd to me. Here it comes. Shoot him!
He's obviously under duress, and this is one of the episodes that we talked about with space acting, where he's had his space mind ripped. Right. So how do you act when you've been in the room? So,
well, I do feel as if this is somewhat. I look at this and I look at contemporary crazy acting versus this crazy acting, and I find that this is a lot more over the top than I really am accustomed to or really expect.
I find them disappointingly the same. Yeah, McCoy, don't talk to the guy who just got karate chopped. Karate chops are harmless. There's no long-term damage. We've had enough samples to do a statistically significant study on the long-term effects of karate chops.
Someone's got to get grant money for that at some time. So many karate chops. But that was a high kick for Kirk. The guy was sitting on a step. Kirk's not a tall guy, and he reached all the way up there.
Yeah, that's good.
Lobbed it. He kind of lobbed his leg up there. He didn't really. I wouldn't say he had proper form. But.
Oh hell no! He's an actor, but it was a good move. It's good blocking. There's episodes later where I can talk about the choreography of Star Trek, and my deep and sincere appreciation for it.
It is a little creepy when McCoy says, "I want to study this one." I'm like, what do you mean, McCoy? Are we talking killing and dissecting here, or what do you mean by studying? And if you just mean observe, then that's something completely different. But study seems to imply some sort of action, possibly nefarious, if you're going to do this.
Yeah, it's analytical and dehuman. It's a strange way to put it. And I think some of that is just the phraseology of the time. And sometimes it's that like overwrought formalism. Where we have to...
If I use a word that no one usually uses, then it makes me sound more competent and intelligent.
Well, it's not necessarily that. It's in terms of phrasing things.
Yeah.
In terms of, yes, we must study him for space knowledge. But
his acting here is reminding me of the Ren and Stimpy episode with the space madness. It's so over the top. I'm having a hard time. Not so much dealing with it. I tone it down, guy. This is Kirk levels of melodrama in my mind.
I guess I've seen it so many times I'm used to it. So, but he's doing lying on a bio bed acting, which is.
Yeah. Well, I get that. Look at his lips. Like, I don't know. Like look at it. This just seems so odd to me. That is just like he's doing duck face right now.
He's a little duck face.
So we're going to see, he's going to get a lot of work out of this Hyponito by the end of the episode.
Oh, he is.
This guy's liver is going to be working overtime. I don't know how McCoy didn't kill him.
Oh, he's a doctor. That's why. And Nurse Chapel makes sure like 3 of those are just red water. 3 out of every 10.
He even says when he came in, we had to triple sedate him. He's talking too much. I sedate him again. Like, McCoy, I don't think you can give so many doses in such short time periods. I'm not a doctor, but I'm so suspect if you're a doctor.
He has a space degree in space medicine from Space Bahamas. Yeah.
Mail order space degree from Space Bahamas. Ship to service. Do you know what Tantalus means? Is that some sort of reference?
Boy, it means Tantalus colony. But no, that's a really good question.
Bison, maybe? I don't know.
It does sound, you're right, Greekish, Romanish.
Because we had the Romulus Remus kind of references when we first called Romulus.
Yeah,
and that's definitely the Greek origin story of Rome.
And Vulcans themselves. I believe it's a renamed version of Hephaestus, the god of the forge.
They are.
So they really do lean on that. And of course, Cleon, the brother of Baal. Yeah, no, they're just Cleons. So
this interplay that we have between McCoy and Kirk is very interesting to me. My takeaway from when it's done is I don't know if they're mad at each other or not. It seems they start off being familiar, and then they're on opposing lines of what should happen, and then they are eerily formal. It's like, well, if I'm going to write in my log, and you got to answer in your log, so there.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Well, that's what it is. I mean, eventually, like, they are friends and they can talk about things on that basis, but at some point their interaction has to be overridden by the roles that each one of them has. Right. McCoy is ship's doctor, Kirk is the captain, and these two forces on the ship are opposed, right? The doctor is one of the very few people who can order the command staff around because he's not a line officer.
Right. What I find is interesting too is that they have an earlier conversation with McCoy and Spock about emotions. We remove emotions, and that's sort of the problem. And in this episode, it seems like we have this notion of the removal of something and replacement with something else. It's almost half of an attempted solution at the problem Spock sort of kind of alludes to with human nature.
Well, I interpret the episode as asking, these people have problems. They're disruptive. They're unpleasant. I think a lot of Van Gelder's performance is based around being unpleasant and weird. And then you say, well, you have the room, and it makes these people compliant. It makes them fit in. It fixes them at the cost of who they are.
Right. Well, I mean, but you still have the emotional Scotty talking to the emotionless Spock, and Spock saying, "Hey, we got rid of emotions until we fixed it." And there seems to be a similar, I guess there's a similar approach to a similar problem that I'm seeing, or at least that's kind of what it seems to me.
Both of them do have to do with subtracting the human element to fix the problem without really addressing it. And this, like many Star Trek episodes, possibly all of them, except for Deep Space Nine's The Sound of Her Voice, really gloss over psychology in terms of the depths of its causes, and it really deals more with, how do you conscionably treat the disease, treat the symptoms, instead of, I think what's more common is how do you just conveniently and quickly handle the symptoms and get them away from me, a normal person.
Right. What I find is interesting here, somewhat of an aside, they're going to beam down to the penal colony, and once again, a person on the penal colony says, "Hey, could you come down with a minimal force, please?" I'd love to know how many times that happens, because it seems like the captain should look over his diary and look, you know what? Every time we go down with minimal force, some shit goes down. I kind of feel like we should never listen to that request.
What if they're, like, for everyone that we see, there are 3 of them, where it's like, yeah, we beamed down with 2 people, and it was fine. Everything was fine. In fact, there were fewer witnesses to the things that happened that were good. It's great.
Well,
it's amazing.
If we take that argument to it, then we can say that this is a perfectly normal space expedition, because for every wacky thing we see 10 things that weren't wacky, and we just so I don't know, like I guess prefer to believe that the things well, I guess that's not true, because there has to be some sort of time elapsed between episodes.
I don't know about that. If you take all the books into account, there was literally no time between episodes. There's like hundreds of these freaking books. The voyages probably lasted 10 years when you take all the extended universe stuff into account.
That's interesting.
Dude.
That's again. And so here we see McCoy being a bastard.
See, everybody being bastards. And even I know there's something wrong with those boobs.
Yeah. I definitely think she put on her dating bra, which is very suspect. And once again, Spock just like, oh, interesting. Human emotions. This woman is kind of having an effect on the captain. Fascinating.
Yeah. So,
once again, he loses his bearing. He starts talking about personal stuff with her. I'm like, you have 3 under...
No, didn't she bring up the Christmas party?
Yeah, but he doesn't have to engage with her.
Dick move. Having a polite conversation. She is being coy as all hell. Like, well, good coy acting, lady.
Not only is she being coy, but I think McCoy has given her some secret, hey, Jim was being a jerk to me, so go make him uncomfortable orders.
Yeah. Also, the unfairness that because he has some personal issue here, she has to be exceptional. Right. And he calls her an assistant, even though she's a trained psychologist.
Yeah, and she's a doctor, like doctor assistant. Maybe I didn't go to 12 years of medical school called just assistant. Thank you.
Space medical school. I do like this shot where not everything is perfectly done. Like they beam in at a weird angle. Like you never see that. So that's obviously an artifact of. That's straight up no more skirt. That's actual underwear that we're looking at.
I like, okay, this is so weird. Like, we're dropping down. Like, you've never been in the elevator before? Like, yeah, it went fast, but I thought you've been to a penal colony. Like, why did your first instinct would just be to wrap her in your arms? And now that you realize things are going fine, you're still keeping your clothes. What is your problem? Get a hold of yourself,
He
Kurt.
disengages pretty quickly. Yeah, it's like they've never seen the Chronicles of Riddick either. That's really that joke.
Yes.
So,
And then after that weird social interaction between the two, it's just we're back to just pretending like nothing ever happened, and everyone's smiling and laughing, and it was so jarring.
That sounds real, though. People selectively edit their memories and behaviors a lot. They don't take that as jarring. And this guy, I'm sure he's played an evil guy in like 100 things.
Oh, yeah. He's got that evil guy. He's got a lot of this kind of Like that's an evil pour. Like that's an evil. Welcome into my parlor. Here's a drink because I'm overconfident pour.
It's my evil wine from my evil glass and my evil mini glasses.
I even had evil art displays. I mean, you can only take it one step further if you had like some sort of like sub-African like shrunken heads or something.
Yeah, that would have worked on a couple levels.
Yeah, actually would. If I ever become a psychologist, I need a shrunken head in my office. It just makes a lot more sense.
Only if you're evil. Leith, of course, a reference to Leith Lake, which I'm probably not pronouncing correctly, a lake of forgetfulness.
Oh, interesting. I did not know that.
Yes.
Yeah, it says Leith at the first time he introduced her, and then every time after he said Leithy. Wow, so convincing.
Well, I mean, sometimes I can only suppose you tried a couple different ways, and then you just take the best shots, and you're like, man, maybe no one will care. Do you like that Leith has the courage to wear an actual rug as a dress? Well, 2 rugs, I guess, for the bag.
Yeah, I find this is kind of are her eyes different or are they the same? I don't know if it's the lighting or if she does have different color eyes.
It's actually they could have done context for different colors eyes. She may have heterochromia. I mean, for that casting call, like you're being like, you got to be a very pretty lady, but also your eyes they can't line up the same way, right?
Yeah.
Colloquially it's known as wall-eyed, but there's actually a proper term for it. It's a bitch. If you ever see it on an actor, I won't give you any names. You will always see it on that actor forever. You're just
dude. No, I will specifically call out Wesley Snipes. I did not know that he had that condition, but he totally does. That's why the majority of his roles he wears sunglasses.
That's good. Yeah. That's not good that he has.
I don't know. We get the soft. What is it? I always forget this. The blur focus. The blur filter.
Soft focus instead of a sharp focus.
Okay.
I
just want to say a blur filter because that's what's happening. Your blur it's getting a little bit blurry.
The day they make the matte shots with Photoshop.
So the soft focus on the doctor assistant is somewhat suggestive, but I still don't know what their kind of goal is for the first half of like the penal colony visit. Like she's very, she's very like, hey, look, I'm an expert, and all the boys were like, no, you're not. You're fighting over your weight. Like what the hell, jerks? Like she is a doctor.
Oh yeah, but again, it's that interplay between doctors and captains. Who's really in charge, and ultimately. He's taking her advice, but he's still doing whatever he feels he needs to do. The punching over your weight class bit is weird.
Yeah, well, that definitely screamed good old boys club to me. Just like, I feel it's sort of the captain sort of deal. And what I don't understand is the captain explicitly asked for someone with her credentials just so he could ignore them? Like, what? No. Oh, well, you're a woman that I have some sort of weird sexual encounter with, so now I'm going to ignore everything you say.
Non-sexual encounter, but we'll get to that. He values her input. He does not necessarily have to follow it.
Well, I agree with that, but he's dismissive of her input. Like in other episodes, he says like noted or understand or some sort of. I realize that you're giving me your expert opinion, so I'm receiving it, but I'm still going to do what I think is best. Where's the hypo
spray going, Bones? Where's it going? Between his finger and his arm?
He's just going to rip up that liver for sure.
No. But you're right. He is far more dismissive of her input than
the previous experts.
Yeah.
What I find is kind of interesting too is that this doctor, I assume all of his underlings that on the penal colony are sufficiently mind wiped, and it makes me wonder how does he explain that away? Like for anyone that comes visit, I guess he does say that there's a lot of visitors.
They don't.
So I mean, does that mean that all I have to do is just become the head of some sort of building somewhere in space that nobody cares about, and then I can just get free reign to do whatever I want, and no one's going to come and check?
Yeah, basically.
That's kind of pro.
Autocratic personalities are a big facet of Star Trek, the original series. You notice people who go off on their own, they sort of become crazy. And you could probably make a thesis about that, about a disconnection from humanity, and how Kirk would be a model of someone who does have an exceptional amount of power. They talk later about how starship captains have a lot of power, and who remains connected to people, who has a very human element, who resists the temptations of power.
Yeah. That's very that is a good point. That's he does for all of his overacting and somewhat suspicious behavior, he still seems connected to the human element despite the actions that he takes.
And I would also like to point out, this is one of the earlier episodes where, in Magic the Gathering terms, the villain here is a white villain. And that they fight for order and structure and things like that. And that's definitely, I feel...
intention for good until he just got corrupted somewhere along the way.
Intention for order. Now, a lot of that is Nazism, right?
Right, yeah, for sure.
So,
straight up
it was 20 years ago. But a lot of that, I think, is also Star Trek saying, hey, look, things are bad, and just because they are orderly, and just because they are quiet, and just because they are well bordered, does not make them good.
It doesn't exclude the possibility of being bad either.
And sometimes doing the right thing involves chaos and pain and death.
Right.
And
he's certainly reckless. Kirk is just... That if we had a reckless meter for every action he does on the penal colony, it'd get pegged a few times.
It's not recklessness. I do know, of course, the biggest example you're talking about.
He jumps into a beta machine. He's like, these controls look simple enough. Doctor Assistant, why don't you just fiddle around with this and see what happens? It's like, what? What? Captain, you are the captain of a ship. You do not have... You should, at the very least, order your underling to do such a thing. Like,
she's a psychologist. She knows about psychology. You don't want to put her in the chair.
He doesn't care about that point until we get to the chair, apparently. Like, he's just treating her as just kind of like one female underling that he can just dismiss her opinion.
You're right. He doesn't care about her as a doctor until he cares about her as a doctor. With the exception of all of those times. Not at all. Yeah, right. So I wouldn't say it's recklessness. It's saying, look, this is orderly and quiet and this functions. It is wrong, and we will stop it, and you will have chaos and pain. And Star Trek out.
Yeah, I think it's just Kirk's patented poker with a stick method.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we've got any clear examples of that yet, but we will. So let's just focus on this episode. I'm sorry for...
Yeah, no worries. The other thing that's kind of interesting to me here, with respect to the assistant, is that the first half of this episode, the assistant is very. She seems to almost be on the side of the doctor here, and even though it's kind of an evaluatory investigation, you'd seem that she would also exercise a certain amount of scientific skepticism, even though this is her baby life.
I don't know if she necessarily has to be skeptical of other people. She says, look, these are all sound scientific principles. Everything he's saying and doing jive with what I know.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, that's like one single report, and you don't get that report in the presence of the guy that you're investigating.
Yeah.
Don't hype on me, bro. Don't hype on me.
Yeah. But you're right about not giving the report in the presence of folks. It's kind of weird they do that. They do that, I think, a couple other times, too. It's strange. And
I feel like there's a lot of... This episode is showcasing a lot of inept training. We have a whole bunch of security people get taken down by a doctor, so those guys need to get trained in hand-to-hand.
That's just like one guy.
No, there was a few guys. The guy gets choked out, and that's how he gets a phaser. I'll give the guy in the transport room a bye just because
He's an engineer.
Yeah, he was an engineer, and it was intended to be a surprise attack, so that's fine. And then you get the guy who's guarding the bridge just straight up. Here's the dramatic doors open and just gets karate chopped anyway.
Right. So, and there were a lot of episodes that wouldn't work if people were better at their jobs, but really, it's not that guy's fault that he stood with his back to the only entrance to the kind of it.
Yeah, that's part of the security protocol. Not
he's like,
the only entrance in.
No one on the bridge is gonna freaking jump this elevator door. None of you are gonna get the drop of the man we're looking for.
That would just be crazy.
Shouldn't you just look at the door, guy? Because you can trust us. We're good.
So, I assume we're about to get introduced to the Vulcan mind meld, correct?
Yeah. For the first time.
And so, what I found very interesting about seeing this was Spock looks very predatory, like a snake. He's about to like suck the images like right out of this dude's head and like ingest them for sport.
Yeah.
It was very otherworldly, which I guess is what he's going for. But it was really, it's definitely a credit to Leonard Nimoy as an actor because I didn't really know it felt odd, and that's probably the point.
Yeah, and they changed it up significantly after this, and it's important to note that Van Gelder gives active, enthusiastic consent for this procedure.
Okay. Because in future procedures there are different types of, I guess, consent.
They're certainly not cool uses of the Vulcan mind meld. And I do mention a running theme of Star Trek for saying, hey, look, authority isn't always right. Going, yeah, no, we need to know this, so just fill them full of truth serum and mind probe them.
And no, it's really important, actually. So we're going to just kind of break all the boundaries here.
With no debate. They got a lot of moral debates in Star Trek, but none of them are, should we go into this person's brain to find us stuff? And they're like, totally. How are you having this conversation? And then that scene gets cut. It's such a non-issue. But.
And this is kind of weird kind of banter between them. I mean, I think this is the last part we get. Like, this is where we kind of have a turning point. Like, after kind of the weird part in the room, she becomes, I don't know, a person with agency that's actually helping Captain instead of just a woman distraction for the Captain. Mm-hmm. And just that difference in role is just kind of odd.
Their interaction up to that point has been contentious. So there is a tension between them, which comes with, I think it's safe to say, him rebuffing her advances. Yeah. Or...
Yeah. And I don't know what that was about, and she sachets away, like she's shaking.
So coy.
She's just like, need you to turn the coyness up to 11.
Yeah.
Need you to be the McCoy of coys. The real McCoy of coy.
Yeah. But of course, it is strange because her being here is a rewritten Janice Rand a bit, where Grace Lee Whitney gets, and they kind of rewrite the script at the last second. So
maybe is that why we're seeing a lot of coyness? Is because we're trying to kind of lay seeds for love interest sort of thing?
Well, one of the stated reasons they got rid of Janice Rand was so that Kirk could sort of have these romantic entanglements without anyone accusing him of being disloyal to Janice Rand.
Uh-huh.
Because if she's always like on the back burner, him having other romantic entanglements is kind of screwed up. And I'm glad they could see that. In fact, it's so out of character for them to see that, I don't consider that like a really legit reason. But anyway.
Yeah. I definitely, that is surprising that they would have that level of insight and no other levels, no deeper levels of insight.
Yeah. So the relationship here, it feels like a really pulp adventure, like Doc.
Now that you put that, makes a lot of sense. Like, weird mind things happening in a prison. Strange kind of mental syncing up things. Girl and guy, like fighting at first and then joining together to beat the bad guy. It definitely feels very pulpy.
Yeah. It's not bad.
I think we've. I don't know if there is space pulp. We need to come up with a genre.
Yeah, there's space pulp.
No, there isn't. Don't ruin my dreams. Don't ruin this for me, Chris.
It's probably called something else, but no. This is. I mean, at the same time, you had Conan coming out. I believe you had I'm going to look like an asshole to people on the internet. John Carter of Mars coming out, which is a very similar type of story. White man, strange land, slices things up, fixes everyone's problems with violence, daring do, or cunning, and gets girl, end scene. Sort of.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we got to this episode, or when we got to this part of where they're using the machine just willy-nilly. So, hey, let's play with this machine that's they're about to abandon and beta test and unreliable.
Yeah.
And I did get this weird sense that she was going to abuse her power at some point. I thought maybe she was just going to, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't know if you want to do this, Kirk. Wasn't there kind of some problem with you? What if she kind of does some shady stuff to your mind?
You trust
but
her.
then her first thing doesn't do anything. Second thing, you're hungry. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then he's like, try something that we'll both know. And then she just rewrites some sort of interaction they had at a Christmas party.
Well, I would love to conjecture about all the things that her fantasy says about that original interaction.
So, if she's rewriting it, the implication seems to be that it didn't happen that way. And
it did not happen that way.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I got to, that she... but there is some sort of... so it makes you wonder what did happen. Because for Kirk to be so ruffled, it had to have affected him in some way. And if it didn't happen with some sort of sexual kind of encounter... then what was it that has Kirk still ruffled to where he has trouble working with her?
Thank you for setting me up with that rant. So we're gonna do a flashback to Dr. What is her name? Dr. Noel's Christmas party fanfic. So
yeah, good joke.
There were drinks. I believe drinks were mentioned. So he goes to the science lab Christmas party. He has some drinks. They obviously hit it off. So he loses his composure and he gets too emotionally invested in her. He leads her on. And as things proceed through the night, he goes, no. I'm sorry, I can't do this. I'm the captain. I'm very sorry. So he's embarrassed that he did get so emotional with her, and she is angry because he kind of gets her revved up and then splits for no reason. Because she specifically asks him about his ship and how the crew sees him. He's like, I don't care. You're more important than that.
Yeah. So if we take the opposite of everything we see in our fanfic, then we can kind of and add some realism to it. Then we can kind of get this notion of what really happened.
Right, and that's consistent with Kirk's character, and it explains both of their reactions. He's embarrassed.
Yeah.
At the unprofessional behavior, and right, and how he hurt her.
Right.
And then of course she's feeling a bit jilted. She feels led on and abandoned.
Yeah. The it is kind of weird. I do take some umbrage that her being a professional couldn't get this notion of the jilted lover that can't get over it sort of thing. I mean, unless it's happened, this is January 10th, and it was just that week. But kind of get the impression that this was a long time ago, and she's been holding on to it. That just seems so. Oh yes, women only care about that men in their life and love and that sort of thing. I mean.
I didn't really think about how long it had been. I assumed it was embarrassingly not like January 10th, but maybe it is January 10th.
Yeah, I mean, if it is, then that makes more sense. But you're never really given a date, so I really don't know. And then also the idea of A, Christmas, B, space Christmas is just kind of odd.
Christmas kind of makes sense. It's a big holiday. Space Christmas, okay, also get that. Space Thanksgiving from the Charlie X episode is pretty f***ed up. Because that's a very American holiday.
Yeah, oh yeah. It is funny when you kind of hear Christians talk about Christmas, and they're like, oh, you can't celebrate Christmas if you're not Christian. I'm like, I hate to tell you this, guy, but Americans co-opted Christmas a long time ago. It's not just here anymore. Yeah. We will be selling things and buying things regardless of your spiritual rhetoric.
Yeah. I also mentioned... I meant to mention earlier, this scene, we should just address it, awakens something in people. Some people are like, oh yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, when you have a power differential like this, there are folks that are like, yeah, I'm going to write smut about this, and this is doing it for me. Lots of weird Star Trek stuff like that. What's that?
Sorry, it's just Kirk had this weird face. Like, it was like pain, I think. I don't know.
Sorry, William Shatner. I tried to distract Derek from that with the sex talk, but he was undeterred. I tried to cover for you, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine when you have like a device like that and you realize it gives you so much power, it's for a person that is undisciplined, it's easy to become corrupted by such power.
Yeah. And I think that's sort of what happened with Noelle, where she's like, absolute power.
Yeah, okay, so that makes sense. And to her credit, like right now, she's like, hey, do you remember what happened? I love you. No, you don't. You remember, we were in there and they took controls away. Like, she is essentially trying to convince him of the opposite of the thing that she was kind of sort of doing, almost in some type of recompense, I want to say.
Well, I think it's just because changing the memories is obviously a messed up thing to do, but it's a little bit.
Yeah,
it's not a good prank
at this point.
But yeah, it's not a good prank. But obviously, Adams is evil, so she's like, he took it too far, and he's trying to really with you. I just kind of wanted to. Like she could have her cake and eat it too. Like, none of the crew would kind of see anything untoward. It was like, hey, remember that time that we kind of did it after the Christmas party? And it's like, yeah, I did. Wait a minute. I got you, Captain. It sucks to be you. I think she just wanted to have that moment that she was denied. And it's not a good thing to do, obviously.
Well,
but it's on a
not
different
a good thing
level.
to do, and it's a very one-dimensional motivation for a female character in the movie.
That's fair, because it's not, when you come to issues like this, it isn't just about one instance. I think this instance would pass, but within the context of everything else,
yes,
it is part of it.
Exactly. Like, I'm fine.
Are you happy?
It's just kind of a general sort of thing, but I mean, it's just everywhere. This kind of stuff is everywhere in the writing.
So this, again, taken alone, fine. When you look at it in context, not so great. But if it makes you happy, those guards obviously saw that happen and didn't tell anyone. Just like the Star Trek, just like the Starfleet guards from Harry Mudd didn't. So there's balance to the universe.
Yeah,
guards
I really
don't give.
Whoever's in charge of like giving guarding classes is just phone in. Like, wherever you go to guarding school, they're just like, yeah, just stand in front of doors, listen to orders. That's all you really got to do. All right, who wants lunch?
Hey, so you guys done plotting to blow up the ship or anything? We got to take you to the brig now.
Yeah.
All right, that's great.
This whole karate-gi uniform with like the abnormally large patch over the left breast is kind of weirding me out.
I like the patch.
It's holding a small dove sort of thing.
Yeah, holding a small dove up against the sunshine. It's a very positive message. It just seems like poorly, like I want to say Dr. Adams tried to draw it. And everyone's like, you can't really tell him that it's badly drawn, can we? No, he signed no paychecks. Like, all right, fine. I like it. I like its stark simplicity. The hand could even be interpreted ominously. And of course, I believe they're just modified versions of the prisoner robe, the technician robe, and probably a robe that's reused a lot throughout the series.
Yeah, I imagine. There's something with like the 60s and 70s and the karate gi. It just was probably everywhere, I imagine.
Well, for an ongoing television show, if it probably fits multiple sizes, it's probably got a lot more versatility.
Oh, yeah.
So if you have wardrobe and you need to handle extras a lot, then you don't need to be like, oh, what are you? A size, a medium? Oh, you're a medium to large? Fine, just put you.
Yeah. Just wrap it up with a belt. You'll be good. What I find is interesting here is that he didn't give her a lot of orders. He just said mega voltage, cross the lines and you're dead. And so she's like, no, I'll figure this out. I just got to turn the power off. And so she goes to turn the power off, and it's... I was like, wait, I thought Kirk told you to short-circuit it. Like, you're not crossing any wires here. You need to find something to cross the wires while still staying alive. That way they can't turn the power back on.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much she planned this, because if she planned this to the T, like, I know one part of it was planned, but if she planned this to the T, then that's just awesome. Because here she is, turning off the power, guy sees her, throws her down, he's like, oh, I'm a girl, I can't handle it. He turns it back on, then he goes back to her, and he kicks him, and then short-circuits the whole thing. I'm like, look at you. was pro as shit, Dr. Assistant.
I do also want to mention this is still a rock. They still have rock set, rock wall stuff here everywhere, which you'll always see all the time in the show.
I love how Mega Voltage only gives you very slight burns. Like, no open wounds, no, like, torn clothing, just a little sooty makeup on the hands and face.
It's a minimalist language of television, but it's
I don't know. I think that the running theme in this kind of commentary is you give a lot of credit to that minimalist language of television, and I don't.
Yeah, no, that's a way to do it. I also excuse a lot of things, and you question things that I haven't. So that's the back and forth there.
Yeah, what I think is so we have this. He does the security screen thing, and I really don't know what the security screen is. I don't get what he's doing, because he was able to come here, right? So everyone should be able to come too. Like, the force field should have already been eliminated. I'm really kind of confused what Spock just did and why. I guess he might have destroyed the force field so he could turn the power back on.
Makes sense. Yeah. It's kind of my assumption. But,
the taste of your own medicine.
Ah, yes.
Feel, Dr. Adams.
And just like a pulp novel, there is that irony, that punishment.
Here we go. Countdown to Sassy Spock in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And in comes Sassy Spock. Dr. Adder, do this too. He's like, oh, now, look at this. Oh, Captain.
Jealous Spock?
You're incorrigible.
Yeah. So again, womanizing, but not in any sort of way with his own agency.
Yeah, and there was somewhat an elegant handling of the explanation. So here we got Spock, who is always logical. He walks into obviously a situation that no one would want him to see, and he sees her say without provocation, "Dr. Adams did this to you. Stop it! Like you have to understand this isn't you, Kirk." He's like, "Oh, okay, I get it. I know exactly what's going on now. Like, I don't have to interview anybody. This is an unprovoked kind of candid situation. So I got this. I'll put in my report. Everything will be fine."
Logically, Captain, we should assume brain waves. Not some sort of brainwave-based plot. I guess he melded with Van Gelder, so he knows.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I've never seen a chair both simultaneously so fancy and so shit.
Yeah, that brushed metal is just very automotive. Yeah, some sort of automotive shop type of chair, like a barber chair that somebody tricked out, like Pimp My Barber Chair or something.
Yeah. Oh, Tantalus. I did look that up, actually. It's a Greek mythological figure. He gets stuck in Tartarus. He reaches up for fruit, and the branches move up. He reaches down for water, and it always goes down, so he can't reach it.
So he's being tantalized.
Ah, yeah. That is definitely the root for that word. So
I guess we assume that all of the hypo sprays that McCoy gave Simon Van Gelder has cured him of just his agitation, and he's able to run the entirety of the penal colony now.
They reverse brain emptied him. I don't know. I don't know.
If we just change the polarity from forward to reverse,
clockwise to counterclockwise,
everything. You like how he talks about, now if you sat in that chair, McCoy, loneliness most. And it is kind of interesting, too, that
we are social creatures, and loneliness is something that people overlook as being a very, very serious punishment, which is why solitary confinement is pretty brutal.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of a pulpy episode, but still a pretty good one. Still kind of has a message in it.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things going on, and even though the magnitude of the kind of misogyny in that episode was somewhat large, the duration of the misogyny wasn't as large. So I would agree with that. I mean, I know I'm going to see a lot, but it's just sometimes you look at it and you're like, guys, come on, guys.
Well, I just want to say I thought that was one of the better episodes, in that she's active,
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
agent, she has agency, she's got a lot of things.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Like, second half of the penal colony kind of stint, she's totally like doing things on her own, helping things out, making things happen.
Yeah. So good episode. Next week is Conscience of the King. So
Cool.
we didn't go any particular detail about, but it's a very different episode from this one. So yeah, any final thoughts?
Oh no, like I said, this is I pretty much kind of gave them all inadvertently, but just generally that I did like the pulpiness of it, and I did like at the very least, even though she was kind of very one-dimensional in the beginning of kind of the penal colony part, she eventually shows her own agency in the end. So it wasn't. I mean, it's not necessarily a wash, but I do at least appreciate that she became a human at some point.
Yeah. All right. Well, next time it's Conscience of the King, and until then,
Remember,